Welcome back to your weekly roundup, where we break down the biggest stories in research security. So, are you planning a trip to the US anytime soon? Well, you might want to stick around, because we've got an update on whether you'll need to hand over 5 years of your social media history at the border. We'll get to that, but first, Canada is making a massive billion-dollar bet on research talent.
Okay, let's kick things off with this quote from David Vignol, the former head of CSIS. It's a really powerful warning, and honestly, it sets the stage for everything we're talking about today. The battleground isn't just about government secrets anymore. It has moved right into our university labs and private companies. And Canada is definitely responding to that shift. This week, the government made a huge statement about its ambitions on the world stage, and it all starts with investing in the most important resource we have: people. Yep, you're seeing that right. $1.7 billion. The government just launched the Canada Global Impact Plus Research Talent Initiative, and the goal is pretty ambitious. Use that money to attract over 1,000 of the world's best researchers and keep Canada at the very top of its game in science and tech. So what's really cool is how they're slicing up this pie. It's not just one giant blank check. They're looking at the whole research pipeline. You've got $1 billion going to bring in established, world-class research chairs. Then there's money specifically for emerging leaders, the next generation of stars. Plus, cash for the actual infrastructure, the labs and equipment they need. And finally, awards to train up-and-coming doctoral students and postdocs. It's a really smart, holistic approach. And this whole strategy isn't just about spending money here at home. Canada is also busy building alliances. Right after the G7 meeting in Montreal, we saw a flurry of new agreements signed with the EU, the UK, and Germany. They're all about working together on the biggest challenges, things like AI, quantum computing, and digital sovereignty. This chart really helps put Canada's investment into perspective. That $1.7 billion is, a huge deal for us. But when you look at the EU, which spent a record-breaking 403 billion euros on R&D last year, well, it just shows you the scale of the global race for innovation. It is incredibly competitive out there. But there's a bit of a reality check here. Some of Canada's top tech leaders are starting to raise the alarm. They're basically saying, look, all this new talent is fantastic, but if we don't also boost funding for the raw computing power needed for AI, we're going to create a bottleneck, and that could put our whole competitive edge at risk. This leads us right into our next topic, the incredibly fierce global fight for the technology itself. We're talking about the hardware, the software, and the stakes really couldn't be any higher. The chip war is just getting hotter. A bombshell report just dropped in the Netherlands. The former CEO of a company called Nexperia is alleging that Dutch officials knew for years that there were plans to move the company's sensitive tech to its parent company in China, and they just didn't do anything about it. And this right here shows you just how complicated this all gets. Another Dutch firm, the chip-making giant ASML, apparently sold sensitive parts directly to a Chinese military research group and a quantum institute just last year. And the craziest part? They didn't even need government approval to do it. It raises some serious questions about how effective our export controls really are. Meanwhile, over in the United States, the Department of Justice just charged 2 men, and one of them is a Canadian citizen, in what sounds like a pretty sophisticated plot to smuggle high-end NVIDIA AI chips to China. The plan was to use fake buyers, lie about where the chips were going, and even relabel them to get around U.S. export laws. But on the other side of the world, we're seeing a totally different kind of tech transfer. While these smuggling networks are trying to steal technology, Ukraine is openly offering to share its battle-hardened drone expertise with Canada. They're saying, hey, we can sell you our tech, or we can build it together. It's just a powerful reminder of how allies can and should collaborate. And all of this brings us right back to where we started, that warning from David Vignol. Because, like he said, the university campus has become the new frontline in this global struggle. So this week, we're seeing reports about Western researchers in China who are facing intimidation and surveillance from state agents. And at the exact same time, universities here in Canada are dealing with a wave of incredibly sophisticated cyberattacks that are targeting their most valuable research, things like AI and nanotechnology. A brand new report just came out called Shared Labs, Shared Harm, and its findings are pretty explosive. It alleges that major Western universities, including McGill, right here in Canada, have been collaborating with labs in China that are directly connected to Beijing's mass surveillance system and the repression of Uyghurs. So, what do we do about it?
Well, the report's authors are calling for some pretty urgent changes. They want universities to start looking at human rights risks when they vet partners, to be completely transparent about who they're co-authoring papers with, and to give their own ethics boards the power to actually oversee these international collaborations properly. Okay, now for that quick update I promised at the top. For anyone who travels internationally, whether it's for work or just for fun, let's talk for a second about what's happening at the US border.
So there's a new proposal in the US that could require visitors from 42 countries, we're talking places like the UK, Germany, Japan, to hand over 5 years of their social media history just to apply for travel authorization. But here's the key takeaway for everyone listening: Canadians are exempt. So you can breathe a sigh of relief, you won't have to do this.
So after all that, the investment, the espionage, the alliances, what does it all mean for the average researcher? Well, it really all boils down to this fundamental tension, this huge conundrum at the heart of science today. On one side, you have very respected voices like Paul Nurse, the new president of the Royal Society. He's arguing that we need to strengthen our scientific ties with China, that open science is essential, and that the West is falling behind in R&D funding. But on the other side, you have security experts like David Vignault warning that Beijing is running an industrial-scale operation to steal our technology. And that leaves us with the million-dollar question, the one that researchers, universities, and governments are all struggling with every single day. In this world of really complex threats and intense competition, how do you protect your innovations without shutting down the global collaboration that science absolutely depends on to move forward? That's the tightrope that everyone is trying to walk right now.